joining us all in this webinar today. It could be morning, it could be afternoon, it could be evening, wherever you are. It is a pleasure to have you all on this for this webinar on women entrepreneurs in small tourism communities. This is a topic which is dear to the heart of many of us. It is a topic which I've done research on for a while, and we will this afternoon be listening and exchanging ideas with a couple of women entrepreneurs, academics, whose research revolves around this topic. We have a couple of items on the agenda. We will start by asking Professor Jafar Jafari to make a welcome note. After that, Professor Donna Chambers will set the scene on women and women entrepreneurship in tourism in small tourism communities. I will then introduce our four panelists. Pagamile Hlazo, who is an entrepreneur in South Africa. Nena Fakoya Smith, who is an entrepreneur in Nigeria. Apollonia Rodriguez, who is an entrepreneur in Spain. And Amiral Benali, who is a postdoctoral academic researcher at the Copenhagen Business School. We will be discussing with them for an hour. We'll have two short presentations from Paga and Nena and Apollonia, as Amira will respond to those, as well as Q&A from the moderators, myself and Professor Chambers. And we will have a short break, 5-minute break, a cultural interlude, where we can all relax a bit, comfort break, after which we will open up the panel for a Q&A with members and all those who are in the audience. So we will try to make it as interactive as possible. We will also, to get some order and ensure everybody participates in the Q&A, be taking questions by the chat, on the chat forum. So we will be monitoring the chat forum for questions, and we will then pass this on to the panelists to respond. I hope this is in order. Thank you for joining, and enjoy the webinar. Professor Jaffa, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. This is a part of a webinar seminars. We call it a small community tourism webinars. And this is number 6 that we are hosting. What is special about our webinar is, in contrast to the rest of them, we are dealing with the informal sector of tourism. Let me be clear on that point. By formal sector, I mean the parts which are established. Usually they are larger in size, in magnitude. They are in mega cities, mega destinations, mega communities, etc. The government is directing all of its attention to the formal sector of tourism. Formal sector of tourism also knows what to do, where to go, how to get help, because this is what they have been doing. They have the money talks, they have force. What is forgotten is tourism in small communities. These are people who actually do not know what to do now. They're totally helpless. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's the right question to ask. And even they don't know from whom to ask the question. Whereas the formal sector, they know exactly what to do to apply for unemployment, to do this. They know exactly what to do. So we decided that we deal with the sector, which is the informal sector, which is often ignored in the tourism industry. But don't assume that informal sector is small. It's a lot of the small sectors operators that coming together that creates a bulk of tourism. So it could be as big as this informal sector. It would be even bigger than the formal sector, but they're so isolated and insulated. So we are dealing with the whole webinar is dealing with the small communities and the small entrepreneurs, and we would like to call them also micro entrepreneurs. This time, particularly, we are talking about entrepreneurs and micro entrepreneurs who are women. So we want to we are bringing two areas of specialization together: small community and women leadership in this area. I'm very happy that you are joining us. Please continue coming to our webinars. We assure you that all of them are dealing with the small communities, small entrepreneurs, and micro entrepreneurs. Welcome, and I'm with you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jafar Jafari, for providing that introduction and clarifying the context within which we are running this seminar series. I will now call on Professor Donna Chambers to set the scene for us, the context of women in tourism.
Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here this morning, and thank you so much for joining us from all over the world. It's really great to have you. Now, as Albert said, and as Professor Jafari said, we're focusing here on women, and I just wanted to kick off by saying that gender matters in tourism. Now, according to the UN, women constitute about 54% of the tourism workforce. And yet gender inequalities dominate in tourism and hospitality, where women are overrepresented in the lowest paid and the most insecure jobs, often in the informal sector, as Professor Jafari was saying before. In fact, the global success of the tourism and hospitality sectors has been built on unequal gendered relationships. Yet rather paradoxically, tourism can and does lead to the empowerment of women, especially in small communities. Now, the question that I think we need to ask is whether this empowerment has actually led to fundamental change in gendered relations in society more broadly. In fact, the UN published a policy brief on the 9th of April this year, which focused on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women. This study concluded that women were the hardest hit by the pandemic. Now, I'm sure nobody is surprised at these results, because in the context of tourism and hospitality, the sectors which are most negatively impacted by the pandemic, women are overrepresented, thus suffering huge losses to their jobs and to their livelihoods. In addition, while more men than women die from the virus, significant resources that have been invested in fighting the virus have been diverted from many of the services that impact on women, such as sexual and reproductive health services and domestic abuse services. Women have also been bearing an increasing share of responsibility for children who have been out of school and also for elderly relatives. Now, the situation does look very gloomy for women, we have to admit, and it represents a setback for the achievement of several of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, including goal number 5, which focuses on gender equality and empowerment of women. Now, there was another UN policy brief that was published in August of this year, and this was titled COVID-19 and Transforming Tourism. And it listed 5 priorities for this transformation, one of which involves the management of the crisis and mitigating its adverse effects, particularly on women's employment and economic security. Now, one measure that is being recommended in this regard is the provision of targeted financial support to boost female entrepreneurship and women-led or owned micro-enterprises. Now, this UN report that I referred to before, that was published in April, has also very optimistically predicted that women will be the backbone of the post-COVID-19 recovery in their communities. So I'm very pleased that today we have a panel of women who are entrepreneurs, employers, and academics in tourism who will discuss stories of challenges, but also of hope and of optimism for women in tourism in small communities. So what I want to do now is to pass over to Dr. Kimbu, who has done some really great work with women entrepreneurs in tourism, and who will also give you some more introduction to our fantastic panel of speakers. So it's over to you now, Albert. Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Donna, Professor Chambers, if I have to be formal, for setting the scene, you know, for clearly highlighting the challenges that women entrepreneurs in the tourism sector face. It is not all negative. Because of these challenges, women are taking initiative. Women are developing resilience and overcoming the structural, social, and cultural challenges that impede their progress. And my research on women entrepreneurs in sub-Saharan Africa within the last 10 years has clearly highlighted examples of women taking ownership and leadership. They are micro-entrepreneurs, but they are active within their circles. They are using their networks, be they informal, to actually affect change. Change which leads to transformation, not only of themselves, but of the societies in which they find themselves. And this is really, really important. Inasmuch as research clearly evidences the disproportionate impacts of policies and the COVID-19 in particular on women, employees, workers, and entrepreneurs, there is a glimmer of hope. Hope which is manifested in the activities, in the businesses that are run by women. Hope that is manifested in how these women navigate their way through their challenges. I recently co-authored a report with, for the UNWTO and the G20 20 presidency, the Al-Ula Framework for Inclusive Community Development through Tourism, which was released on Wednesday. And in that report, we clearly show that women are going to be pivotal to recovery, but there needs to be change. There needs to be a mindset shift in policy as well at national, regional, and local levels, as well as change in the way society perceives and acknowledges their contribution. On that note, I will introduce our panelists who are change makers within the sector. We decided to select not panelists who are not going to, who have not failed or who've experienced these challenges, but overcome them. Panelists who show hope, because it's through hope and it's through that motivation to succeed that we as a community, we as small tourism businesses within small communities will be able to overcome the challenges posed by the pandemic. On that note, our first panelist who is going to do a presentation is Pagamile Hlazo, also known as Paga. Paga is the founder of Zulu Nomad, a social enterprise leveraging digital and emerging technologies to enable African tourism capacity and enterprise development at scale. In 2019, Zulu Nomad launched the Africa Travel Hackathon, to a movement poised to be a catalyst for the rise of travel startups in South Africa and the continent as a whole. She is the recipient of various awards and scholarships, and in April 2020 was named one of the 100 inspiring women founders in travel by Travel Massive. In 2019, she was also named one of the 200 young South Africans in the entrepreneurship category by the Wall, by the Mail and the Guardian. Please welcome Paga. Our second speaker is from West Africa, Nigeria, and Nana Fakoya Smith, popularly known as Ajale Nene, she's going to tell us what that means, is a tourism promoter, a tourism business, and a tourism business coach. She is the founder of Nene Uwa Hub Limited, a tourism company that helps tourism entrepreneurs build viable, sustainable tourism businesses through online programs and digital marketing. She, in 2018, she was nominated for the Prize Award for Rising Star Award of the Year in Tourism and recognized as one of the Young Tourism Personalities of the Year by the Nigerian Tourism Awards for hosting the first ever tourism virtual summit in Nigeria. And it brought together participants from across Africa and the world. And the last one, actually, the second or third one, took place 2 weeks ago. As you will see, our two panelists who are going to do presentations have something in common: technology. Technology, which is being used to leverage the opportunities available out there. Some people say Africa's internet penetration is low, but there is, in spite of that low internet penetration, there are opportunities which technology can help leverage. Our third speaker, our panelist this afternoon, is Apollonia Rodriguez. Apollonia is the founder and creator of Destination Dark Sky and Dark Sky Aquelva in Portugal. She has occupied leading roles in various EU-funded projects linked to the European System of Tourism Indicators, ETIS, and in Destination Management and Tourism Sustainability Group that developed the agenda for European sustainable and competitive tourism. She has been advisor to a good number of organizations within the EU and in Portugal, where she comes from, and has won numerous awards for her role in creating new destinations and future trends in sustainable tourism. The latest being the Tourism Oscar from the World Travel Awards as Europe's Responsible Tourism Award in 2018. Apollonia, thank you for being one of our panelists. And our final panelist is Amira Benali. Amira is a postdoctoral researcher in the Department of Management, Politics and Philosophy at Copenhagen Business School in Denmark. She's an interdisciplinary scholar working on issues related to gender, social justice, poverty, and alternative economies in the intersection of management. Tourism studies and socio-anthropology are also part of her research interest, and her current project focuses on the experiences of marginalized women in Tunisia, where she comes from, and the social and solidarity economy. Amira, thank you for joining us. So I will now, I forgot to mention our final panelist, Kazem. Kazem is based in Japan, and she will be providing the experience of small tourism businesses within the Japanese and Asian context. Thank you, Kazem, for being part of the panel. The first part now is going to be dedicated to 2 short presentations, after which we will have an interactive discussion from our 2 panelists as well as from the moderators. After that, we will have a short break, and following the short break, we will have Q&A. So I will pass on the floor now to Paga to kick off the presentations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Albert. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Can you navigate the slides?
I'm unable to navigate the slide, Dr. Albert, if you don't mind just moving on to the next one for me.
Okay, that's fine.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pagamile Hlazo, and I'm the founder of Zulu Nomad and the Africa Travel Hackathon, as Dr. Albert has so wonderfully introduced me. And, you know, I've backpacked through 30 countries as a young person, really through the privilege of scholarships that I've been awarded. Academic scholarships as a young person allowed me to travel quite extensively from a young age. And I ended up living in the UK for a little bit, and I ended up living in China for a little bit. And so my background in tourism has always been in the immersive side of tourism. When you're backpacking a country, the way that you experience the country is very different to a traveler who's going to come into a hotel room and, you know, look at all the fancy stuff and take their fancy photos and then go home and see all the big attractions and then go home, versus a backpacker who's really going to go and get involved in the community or get to know the area and meet local people and stay with local.
How are you there? We seem to be having a tech glitch.
I can't hear.
Haga? Looks like she's offline. Oh, it's
Lost her connection.
connections. Okay. Okay, I think while she sorts the connection, we would move on, if you agree, to Nana Fakoya Smith, and then she can come back after she sorted the connection. Hopefully, she's able to join us again. You know, it's. I just mentioned Africa has a lower digital internet penetration rate, and it so happened that we are having a tech glitch. Okay, Nana, please. I'll pass on the floor to you to lead us through your entrepreneurial journey. Tell us how COVID has impacted on your business and what strategies you are adopting and have adopted to overcome some of the issues you're facing as micro entrepreneur.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome. All right. Please forgive our technical issues in Nigeria or in Africa. It's what we're dealing with, and we're trying to make the best of it despite it all. So, hi, my name is Nena Fakoye Smith. I'm popularly known as Ajala Nene. So, Ajala means there's this guy that used to travel around the whole of Europe. He was a Nigerian guy. He used to wear abada and use his bicycle to travel around the world. So popularly in Nigerian culture, when you hear Ajala, it means somebody who likes to travel a lot. So I just put my nickname is Nene. So I put Ajala and Nene together to give me the name Ajala Nene. So that's where I got the name from. So most people in my industry call me that because I love to travel and I love to explore countries. In my final year in university, I'm going to share my story, how I got into the tourism space. In my final year in university, I did my final year project on tourism development. Dr. Albert, you can move to the next slide, please. So I did my final year in tourism development. And I learned during the project, I learned that Nigeria had all the 36 states in Nigeria has not just one, not just two, but like numerous tourist destinations. And I was wondering, why are we not utilizing this? So fortunately for me, after I graduated from school, I had opportunity to work as a tour operator in a tourism company as a tour consultant. And I learned the back end about packaging tours, how to package tours, how to get people to come and market your tours for you, or how to sell it. For me, I found that that was not something I really liked doing because I found I don't really have that patience to be packing tours for people. So I thought to myself, what can I do? How can I impact my industry? Because since I don't like packaging tours, and that's basically what we have here, tour operators, travel agents, what else could I do? So fortunately for me, I love to organize events. And I had someone tell me, Nina, why don't you host a tourism virtual summit? You don't have to get people to come together into one place. You can do that online. And so I decided to reach out in 2018. I decided to reach out to some tourism professionals in Nigeria and those who are doing so much amazing things in the tourism space that people didn't know about. I brought them together, about 40 of them, to talk about the possibility of tourism development in Nigeria. And it really went well. And I really got to learn a lot of things that people are doing behind the tourism space that we may not know. From that, I decided to go into more of tourism education. Because the truth is that a lot of people have good tourism businesses like tour operators, travel agents, but they're not really making money from it because they don't really know how to go about it in the business sense. someone like me, I love traveling, I love exploring. If I go to countries, I have to eat their food, I have to explore what they do. But even if I'm packaging it as a tour to someone, they have to understand, how am I going to make money from it? So I decided to host a tourism boost workshop, where I got people in the tourism space who are doing so well, like travel bloggers, tourism journalists, um, travel writers, to come and teach people who wanted to actually start a tourism business, and also teach them how they could make it sustainable. They could make income from it. Because I did a survey and I asked tour operators what was the problem they were having with having packaging their tours or doing their businesses. And they said they were not making good money from it. They were not making sustainable income from it. So I said, okay, let's do a tourism boost workshop, so that those who are doing well, who are making money from it, can actually teach other people. So from there, I found out that it wasn't just the tourism space. They just learned, but how are they going to apply this thing to their business? So I decided again to start the Tourism Business Academy, where people can learn how to market, not just package their tours, package their tourism businesses, but also to market them. And for me, I found one of my strengths is marketing online. I mean, like, social media, digital marketing has really helped bring out the best in my business in the past 3 years. I just started 3 years ago, and I'm getting awards, I'm getting recognized, I'm getting featured, I'm getting people who want to work with me. And people ask me, how are you doing that? And I said, I'm leveraging the technical space. I'm leveraging social media. I'm leveraging my website. People get to know me through my website because I keep putting content out there. So for me, that was how I decided, okay, fine. What part of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal would I want to focus on? So I decided to focus on the SDG 8, that's decent work and economic growth. Because it's not just about having the beautiful environment for people to visit. How are you going to make money from all that? And unfortunately for us here in Nigeria, tourism is still growing. People are doing so well. We have amazing people who are in the space who've been doing so well, but people have not been making the money they need to make from the industry the way they should. So for me, that's where I started to come in as being a sustainable tourism advocate, by doing more of education, tourism education, and also teaching people how to leverage the digital space to promote their business and at least make money from them. So fortunately for me, I've been called by my alumni and my alma mater, that's Covenant University. I've spoken about tourism development to some of my classmates from there. I've also had the opportunity to organize tourism awards and trainings. I've been also a tour guide for some people when they come to visit. I join tour operators and I become like their tour leader, their tour guide. And I hosted the Tourism Virtual Summit about 2 weeks ago. We have hosted one that focused on tourism digital marketing. With COVID-19, a lot of things have happened, and a lot of people have maybe not made money from, especially in the tourism space, where have been the biggest hits. But I keep telling people that as long as your people are seeing what you're doing, you keep putting out content out there for people, you keep doing out, making people know that you have this thing to offer, so that when everything goes back to normal, you know that you're in people's faces. But for me, the way it has actually impacted my own business is that I was helping some tour businesses to actually organize their digital marketing. But because of COVID-19, it had to go on hold because nobody was packaging tours for at least 3-4 months, or should I say 6 months. And then, of course, there are no tour packages to promote and earn commission from, because that's basically what I do. I don't package tours, but I help promote tour operators, especially the ones in Nigeria, their local tours, and I make a commission from that. But that for the past 6 months, I've not been able to do that because of COVID-19. Also, because I host tourism events, especially physical ones, I had to put some of these events on hold, like my workshops and all that. But how have I been able to cope during this COVID-19, my coping strategy? So I decided, okay, fine. Like I said, even though there's nothing happening now in the tourism space, it doesn't mean I should shut down business. I've had events and things I've done from the past. I have content I could share with people about tourism and travel. Let me just keep doing that. So of course, I leverage on social media to help me stay connected with my audience, to stay connected with my partners, by sharing travel stories from the past, by hosting challenges. And of course, like 2 weeks ago, I hosted the Tourism Virtual Summit to let people know that digital marketing is the way. Life is now digital. It has been digital, but now COVID-19 has showed us that you need to leverage the digital space so that your business is visible to the right people. And of course, you start making a sustainable income when things start working well. Then Another thing I did was that I started helping tourism organizations who are hosting virtual events. So COVID-19 made us know that virtual events were amazing. So people started reaching out to me because I've held virtual summits for the past 2 years. People started reaching out to me to help them coordinate their virtual events. And with that, I've been keeping myself visible in the tourism space by helping people coordinate their virtual events, showing them how to use Zoom, showing them how to leverage digital marketing to be able to promote their businesses. Meanwhile, till everything gets back to normal. Then, of course, I started packaging my online program. So I have this, I'm a tourism business coach. What I do is I help tourism businesses who want to help create visibility for their business by leveraging digital space, by leveraging digital market and platforms. So instead of just focusing on tourism people now, I've started to open up to other industries. And I focus on small businesses who are really looking for how to use digital marketing to promote their businesses. So that's the way I've been able to cope with this, by just being out there on social media, by helping people who want to do their virtual events, helping them coordinate it, since I'm very good at doing that. And I've been posting my online program, which is specifically for tourism people, to other industries. So it's not just I've left the tourism space. I'm still in the tourism space, but I'm helping people from other industries who are small businesses looking to create visibility for their space and at least start making money when things get back to normal. So that's basically a nutshell of what I have been doing to stay afloat during this COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ajalanede, for that insightful snapshot of how you've navigated your way through the crisis and actually turning it into an opportunity. And those are the stories which we like to hear. Those are the stories which need to be shouted out there, how COVID-19 is not all doom and gloom, but how it could become a transformative opportunity for individuals who are operating within the tourism space. I will check and see.
I'm back. I'm back.
Paga is
The
back.
internet gods wanted to prove to everyone on the webinar today that you are right, that connectivity is a challenge in Africa. If anybody was doubting you, now they know for sure. But if we can just go to that slide with the images, Dr. Yes, slide 4. So, just to Professor Jaffar's point now, when we started, around communities in tourism who are just so well endowed with beautiful natural resources, with a wonderful heritage, with a wonderful culture, but they just don't know how to leverage these resources for tourism. This is an example of a community that we work with very, very extensively in Mozambique. On the left corner here are the young men in the community who are traditionally farmers, right? And they are fishermen. And they've, over the last couple of years, started using some of their fishing boats for little sailing trips for people coming to Mozambique, and to that part of Mozambique is just in Yambane. So, and then at the bottom there, so we work with them in terms of helping them. They've already worked out what the experience will look like, because we want for the experience to remain as authentic as possible. However, what we are helping them do is access market. We are helping them get exposure within South Africa, within all travelers really coming into South Africa, to say, guys, Mozambique is a hop and a skip away, and there's this wonderful experience in a rural community, in a rural island. Next to that, we have a picture of one of our experiences on the island as well. The lady there is the chief. She's the chief mama, and she is teaching one of our guests there how they make coconut cake. So that is raw coconut that they pick from the island and the trees. And then she, as part of the experiences that we've helped them be able to create for travelers, is teaching this young lady how to make coconut cake. On the bottom left, on the same island with the same community, we have started scouting the island to find sites for glamping, right? Again, these are very low-lying fruit, because these are assets that the community already has. They just don't know how to leverage these assets for tourism. On the far right here is just a picture showing what our typical trip would look like, where you have ourselves as Zulu Nomad as, you know, the experience provider. However, we have actually partnered with a young man here who's a photographer who is on the trip to actually take high quality photos that can go on Instagram and social media, etc. We know that that's something that travelers definitely want right now. Next to him, you've got a young man who's a chef, right? So wherever we go, we want to make sure that people are eating good food, but authentic food that are still authentic to the area and to Africa and to our communities, using local ingredients, etc. And everywhere we go, in all of the communities that we work in, this is the type of impact that we want to have. We want to enable small communities with the skills on how to create experiences, and then also work with young people in the area, in the communities, in terms of bringing together a holistic experience for the traveler. We can move on to the next slide. So as I was saying, you know, my exposure in terms of being able to travel quite extensively as a young person in Europe and in Asia, but as a backpacker, really when I came back to South Africa, I realized that there's a huge gap between the local market, because you've got a growing middle class, right? You've got a growing number of people with disposable income who just don't know actually what tourism is. People think tourism or travel is all about the hotel. It's all about, you know, the fancy stuff and spending all this money. And over time, we realize there's actually a huge opportunity for young people to be contributing to our economies, for young people to be uplifting our own communities just by going out there and exploring. And so in 2016, we formally registered the business as a tour operator, and we're offering curated experiences in South Africa and Mozambique. And as I say, in Mozambique, we found this little rural community. They're on a little island just off of the coast there. And between 2016 and 2017, that destination became so popular. If you go on Instagram now and you search tofu Mozambique, you'll find tons and tons of photos. And so we're so happy with that, because we know that we've made an impact in that community. And if it can be done there, it can be replicated across communities across Africa. And it became so popular, we needed to actually add inventory. And so we started looking at experiences, and we added inventory of experiences in Botswana, in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Malawi. And we're encouraging young people and travelers to say yes to new adventures in Africa, because Africa is not just about safaris, right? In 2018, we realized that, you know, for the communities that we're actually traveling through, tourism is a lifeline. When we're not there, when Mozambique had the big tsunamis, even though the tsunamis were in the very north part of the country, our communities that we work with were very heavily impacted, because obviously travelers don't know the difference. And our communities went through a very, very rough time. Generally, they go through a rough time in wintertime anyway, because people are not so much about trying to be going to the coast, even though it's a tropical destination. People just think, oh, it's wintertime, therefore there's not going to be travel. And so because we built these relationships, we understand the needs of the communities and realize that actually tourism is a lifeline which can provide potential for driving transformation and inclusive growth, especially for women and youth. And by my professional background, where I am a change management consultant working on digital transformation projects in the last few years, you know, I was then able to marry the two, marry my professional and academic skills with my small tourism business. And we decided to then see how we could scale Zulu Nomad digitally in order to maximize our impact. And that's where the idea of the Africa Travel Hackathon came about, where, you know, because we have traveled so extensively in different communities in all of these different African countries, 8 African countries to be specific, we have an intimate understanding of the challenges on the ground at a grassroots level, very real challenges like the ones that that Professor Jafar alluded to at the beginning. And we know for a fact that Zulu Nomad, as one, you know, little small business, we're not going to be able to solve all of these challenges. What is required is we need young people, of which there is a growing number now on the continent. There's a growing number of young people who actually are coding or who are getting training in technology and who are building on their technology skills, but all of their knowledge is not being applied in the tourism industry. Tourism is like this big black box that nobody understands. And so the idea of the Africa Travel Hackathon was to take these young people with these technology skills and move them into tourism and expose them into tourism so that they can get a view of the challenges in the tourism industry that they could then start building technology-driven solutions for. So in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on our business, the most natural progression for us as a business, starting off as a tour operator, moving to the digital space, the idea was that we would create a digital platform where people would then be able to book experiences, not just South Africans, but everyone on the continent who's trying to travel to any of the African countries that we have a footprint in. They'd be able to use this platform to book experiences, as well as travelers coming in from other countries of the world. Now, unfortunately, obviously with COVID-19, that had to be put on hold as nobody was traveling. However, we'd already invested in this platform. If anyone's tried to build any kind of technology platform, you'll know the kind of resources that are required. We've also obviously had a negative cash flow impact on existing experiences outside of anything that we're trying to do on the platform. And then there's just the uncertainty in terms of forward-looking scenarios with very limited resources that we're working with. We know that the domestic industry is going to recover first, and then the regional and then the international markets are going to start opening up again. However, it becomes very difficult as a small business owner with very limited resources to see what you're going to peg, and invest resources in right now during the pandemic. However, what we have done, if we move on to the next slide, please, Dr. Kimbu, is in the past few months, we've really focused on building relationships with African tourism stakeholders, letting them know who we are, because we've spent a lot of our first 5 years in business in the communities themselves. And so we've used this time to really build now on the key stakeholders, key decision makers, to let them know who we are and our key skills around technology enablement to see where we can add value. We've also focused on new collaborations with tourism startups. For example, we have brought to South Africa the Tourism Technology Bootcamp, which started off in Lagos. It's a Lagos-founded idea, but we've brought that now to South Africa and customized it for the South African market. And what that bootcamp does is it allows young people, again, if you're familiar with South Africa, you know that we're probably sitting with one of the highest youth unemployment rates in the world. However, when you look at the top university lists, South African universities are on there. So it's not that young people are not educated. Young people just don't know how to create opportunities for themselves. And so why this bootcamp resonated so much was because it is actually an 8-week program, at the end of which a young person has a tour product that they have actually developed that they can now put into the market. And this worked very well, was in line with our strengths, again, because the idea is that once we have trained these young people on how to create the tours, you have 8 weeks, you create one tour, which we will then put on the platform and give you access to market. However, you now have the skills to go on and create more and more and more tours and experiences in your community. And lastly, we have also focused on developing targeted solutions for development at scale. And this is like for tourism development at scale in the longer term, again, with the understanding of our context. There isn't a lot of understanding within the Black African community of what tourism is, or how people can leverage on tourism for their own economic development. And so we are looking at how we use technology to bring people closer to the industry, and to bring people closer to opportunities in the industry, to bring people closer to understanding where they can add value. So you've got people who could potentially be investing in tourism, but because they just don't understand it, they're not. And this is what we've been focusing on in the last few months. We have developed online training programs. The first was very much targeted at COVID-19 itself. We developed an online course based on the South African safety protocols for COVID-19. Again, with the understanding that we have that, you can develop all these great protocols. The World Travel and Tourism Council has wonderful protocols that they've developed for every part of the tourism industry. However, that person on the ground, these people in the communities that we work in, we know for a fact they don't have access to that information. And so we are taking the protocols that have already been developed and converting them into small online courses, which we then feed into these communities and to small business owners. And we've had 80 business owners now take that COVID-19 safety training, as well as then bringing the tourism technology bootcamp from Lagos. The Lagos version of the bootcamp is a physical version. The South African version we've put completely online, again, in the context of COVID-19. Thank you very much, Dr. Kimbu.
Fantastic, Faga. Really, really amazing stuff you are doing there, you and Nena. It clearly shows that the young, enterprising, industrious tourism entrepreneurs in Africa are not sitting and moaning about the impacts of COVID-19, but they have seen it as an opportunity to be innovative, an opportunity to be daring, and it seems to be bearing fruit. There is transformation which is taking place, and that is actually one of our the key goals here. Tourism as a motor for transformation of the self, transformation of the individual, and social transformation in society, providing opportunities for those mom and pop businesses on the trajectories which you go through with your tours, providing opportunities for young people in South Africa, Nigeria. They have the youngest populations in Africa and in the world. Actually, Nigeria has the youngest population in the world, but then the very high unemployment rate. So there is activity which you people are, which you are undertaking, and this is transforming lives and livelihoods. Fantastic. I will now call on Apollonia to tell us what you think as the owner of a successful small tourism business in Portugal, which has all run. You're a woman. You run your business in a small location or in smaller communities. Do you see any similarities between the engagement, activities, and actions of our first two speakers and your business? And do you think COVID-19 has had a significant or serious impact on your business, and how and the measures which have been put in place to overcome this? Are there any similarities? And do you see the same scenario happening in Portugal or similar?
Hello, good afternoon. I have to say, first, before going to your question, I just wanted to make a remark concerning the first presentation of you and Donna, Professor Donna, and Professor Jafar. It is really complicated for a woman to be successful in tourism, and not in tourism, but in leadership, because there are many women in tourism, but in low positions. When you try to be in a high position, it's really hard to be successful. And I felt that since the beginning. And especially because I work in the tendencies in future, so I don't work with demand that is on place. I work in advance, and that is really more hard to be understandable for all people, and especially for men that are in high positions. But going to what you said, yes, I see some similarities, and because mainly we are women fighting in a world of men, and where small businesses is not is not an option of the governments. Usually small businesses are like that. They are small, they are for their owners. It's like their own job they created, but not taking into consideration that could be a huge and important part of small communities and their income. I mean, their progression, you know what I mean? So to be more sustainable in that part of the countries. And in case of Portugal, I have to tell that I work in rural areas where I don't I hope there isn't a huge development. I mean, when I say huge development, it's development without sustainability. So it's better to have small businesses that respond to identity of this area, instead of trying to do what they did in the coast or in Algarve area. So they lost completely the identity of the place. And in this case, COVID I think and I hope COVID gave a good lesson. So the areas that are developed until now in a more sustainable way, that can cope with some big entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs, and the most of them are small entrepreneurs, they were the first to feel the recovery. So they were the first to feel that the national tourism wanted to come instead of the other areas. So I hope that could support what I see, that is our way is more sustainable development for these areas. And I hope also that people like the two panelists before speaking with me, their strengths and their resilience and capacity to overcome the not only what happened now in COVID, but also before, because I'm sure they have to overcome some obstacles in their work that help us women to be more capable to overcome all the things that are coming from COVID. In our case, we were successful in the recovery, means that between June and September, we had a great demand. For example, in our small businesses, we had only one session per night because we work in stargazing, so we work at night. As you see in my image with the telescopes, it is an observatory. And we had to do 3 sessions per night to be able to fulfill all the requests we had. But I have to also say that we are not just working, and I think this is also what happens with the other 2 panelists. I'm not just working the small business. With the successful we had with this creation of the Dark Sky Alqueva, we were requested to implement this concept and brand in 2 other areas in Portugal. So we took the time, we were not working in the small business. As you see in the country, this is Portugal and Spain next to it in gray, the rest is coastline. And we have already 3 areas that we are working. The Dark Sky Alqueva is run by us. So apart the business, the observatory, it's our main income. We support other entrepreneurs. Like the other panelists, we help them to change the way they work, to give them other opportunities to work with the night, to develop the business in the night, and support them to do different activities. For example, we were working with a small entrepreneur that is doing canoeing, tourism nautic activities. We asked them to do it at night, and so on. So we were also supporting. And with these 3 areas we are now developing, we are using this time, and I think the winter will be, autumn and winter will be our main challenge, and because we don't know how all the countries are increasing the number of COVID cases, so we don't know how this will go on. So we are taking our work to develop these 2 areas in center and north of Portugal, while we are understanding and knowing better how this COVID situation will go on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Apollonia,
you very much.
I know you get passionate about it, which is fantastic.
Yes.
To see how following in on the first 2 panelists, it's almost the same, using the opportunity of COVID-19 to develop other products, to expand, to do other engage in other activities, and it's fantastic to see that even though it's in Portugal, it's a European country, the trends are the same, the activities are the same, some of the issues which you face are similar. Amira, coming from North Africa, I'll move on to you now. Coming from Tunisia, what do you think have been some of the impacts of COVID-19 on small women businesses, women entrepreneurs back in Tunisia? Have they been affected? Can you, in a couple of sentences, just tell us what the situation is and how they are coping with it?
Yes, first of all, I really want to thank these great entrepreneur. It's always amazing and inspiring to hear this initiative, and I completely relate to the context of Tunisia. I mean, I'm studying also initiative from women entrepreneurs in Tunisia. And I feel the same energy, the same also ambition to not only to do business and tourism, but also to transform the society and to overcome precarity, social injustice, sexism, and all these issues are, very fundamentally related. So what I want to say is that the context of COVID obviously had, affected the tourism sector in Tunisia and small business in Tunisia, but it's not. It doesn't bring anything really new, because it's also shed light on already existing problem and challenges, especially for women entrepreneurs and small businesses. Maybe what I want to add, in the context of Tunisia, we already have political instability. The context, especially after the revolution and the Arab Spring in 2010 and 2015 with the two terrorist attacks, we already have, the society was, facing different level of problems. So security, terrorism, the rise of also political Islam, which also affected tourism and especially women working in tourism. But at the same time, as you said, this also was, in a way, it creates opportunity for women from different backgrounds to be actors in tourism, because before this, it was also very limited to elite, the society who own, hotels. After the revolution, after the terrorist attack, also we have been receiving funding also that encourage women, especially young women, to start their own businesses. So in that sense, what I want to say is that women entrepreneurs and small business have been already practicing, resilience in a way, and negotiating, it's also something that I hear from the other speakers, that before the situation is already challenging. So that means that they already have their own tactics, of negotiating patriarchy, economic problems, and so on and so forth. So what I also see, that there is clear digital, ambition to transform also, or to promote digital transformation in tourism sector. During this, we had in Tunisia 3 months of lockdown, where I can see that all this small business, entrepreneur in tourism have been sharing a lot in their social media, trying to promote a rural region in Tunisia, local, knowledge, trying to rethink also the tourism industry and how we can think the future of tourism in Tunisia, how we can also promote more domestic tourism instead of relying on international tourism. So yeah, and what I also can see, that there was a wave of solidarity between the different actors, not only in tourism but in other, industry sector, trying to work, together in order to overcome this crisis. I don't want to get too much into my field, because then I get passionate and probably I won't let the others speak. So if you have any precise question related to the context of Tunisia, we'd be happy to to go straight to the point.
Thank you very much, Amira. Fantastic. We've now had from all our panelists, and it is obvious from the presentations and the contributions that women in Portugal, in North Africa, in Tunisia, in Nigeria, in South Africa are actually leading the way. They are leading the way in making change, transformative change, in spite of all the challenges which are sometimes thrown at them. Sociocultural challenges, political challenges, institutional challenges, coupled with COVID-19, which has added another level of a challenge. But they are working their way through it. This brings us to the end of this first section. We will take a 3 minutes to 5 minutes comfort break. And after that, we will open up the discussion to contributors to ask questions, all the attendants and participants to feel free to type in any queries they might have or questions to any of our panelists. We also have some questions for them, and we do hope we will make this second half more stimulating, more interesting, and would lead to some interesting outputs from all of us to take away at the end of the webinar. Thank you, and see you in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Albert. So I just want to mention everybody that the chat room is on. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to write questions. Our assistant team are going to read it and select some questions to answer.
So you guys are tonight's gonna tell us what surprised you the most about Lesotho and Swaziland.
I think it's the sky. And the skies everywhere were just, you know, I just felt I was in space.
Oh wow!
Just close to the, you know, heaven. Oh, so beautiful. People, places, and my companions.
Of course.
I miss them. Yes.
It's amazing. And Lerato, what was the biggest surprise for you about Lesotho and Swaziland?
Okay, one, the weather is not so fun. Two, there's no Wi-Fi. Three, okay, let's just see what completely surprised me. Yeah, I think I underestimated how developed it would be. And I felt like I was literally going back in time. And I was thinking it's probably one of the places that are still more preserved than anywhere in the world.
And people with blankets just walking around the street. I was, you know, they were just, you know, king of ancient times, you know, with their outfit.
But that's was it like Wakanda?
Yeah.
It says that, you know, you never know how cold it will get, so you know my stories.
So they were the lords of the blankets.
Thank you very much, and welcome back. I hope we did have time to stretch our feet a bit and unwind. So the second second part of this webinar session will be opened it's going to be more interactive. we'll open it to have discussions from the participants, as well as from amongst the panelists and the moderators. And I will call on Professor Chambers to lead the discussions going forward. Donna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much, Albert, for that. I think we've been getting some really fantastic comments in the chat about how much people enjoyed the presentation. So thank you very much for that. There are a couple of questions that we have in the chat here right now that I'm going to put to you. One of the questions comes from, I think, Vered, and what he wants to know is about whether there are any attractions that exist in private homes where there are women who act as hosts or as guides. So from your experience, do you know of some attractions that exist in private homes where there are women who are acting as guides or as hosts for that? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of that? And maybe can I go to Paca first? Do you have something you want to share?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So, you know, in all of these communities that we travel through, it's actually usually women that we engage through. So the women would either, for example, be owner of land. Oh, I'm so sorry. My little boy's just come into the room.
This is what happens when you're on Zoom. So yeah, this is what happens when you're at home on Zoom.
Yes, so for example, in Swaziland, the community that we're referring to in that video, that's a lady who we work with. She would typically work with host travelers in her home. She provides a meal. She tells a little bit about her life and her story, and she's living in her traditional home. So you get to spend the night in her traditional home. She cooks for you. You see her garden outside. You get to hear a little bit about her life. And as the ladies in the video were saying, you know, there's no Wi-Fi there. So it's literally about connecting with the person and having that very, very authentic experience.
Yeah, it's great. Ajala Nene.
Okay, so most of the tour operators I know in Nigeria are mostly owned by women. So if you look at it, most times you see that women are the ones that, if they're packaging the tours, some of them act as the tour guide, or we usually call them the tour leads. So anytime they go to communities where they're going to take people to, most times small rural communities, they partner with some of their tour guides. Most of the tour guides are usually young men, but we usually have women too who are actually also being tour guides. But most times it's more of the people packaging the tours who are like the tour lead. So we just put that all together to show that these both women and men are working together to be like tour guides in the tourism space, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I know, Amira, you probably have a lot of experiences with that in Tunisia. And what are some of the challenges that you think those women face?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we know that there is a shift today toward, receiving also tourists or, offering something in home. And basically, the actors are different, right? So now we talk about rural women also receiving tourists, also male tourists at home. And of course, they are challenging a lot of problems, mainly with their husbands and with their family that won't accept, especially in a context of a Muslim country, to receive male in their home. So as I said, there is an anecdote that I always like to talk about. This woman that, will send his husband to take care of the sheep while she will receive, tourists in her house and offer a meal, within 2 hours. And then how she also with this, once she start earning money, she become actually entitled to receive with the okay of her husband. So, and this is where we see how really economy and tourism and gender really meet, how these women have to navigate and to negotiate different structure in order to make to emancipate themselves and to be to have the agency over themselves. So it's but yes, I mean it's really nice to see that more and more we've seen women receiving tourists and offering things in their house. Yeah, and not the elite women but the rural women.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting way that the women there, that particular example is negotiating that particular challenge that she had. I think that's a very creative way of doing that. What about you, Apollonia? Do you have something you want to chip in there with that question? You need to unmute. You need to unmute. Apollonia, unmute.
Sorry. Just to say that here in Portugal, it's a little bit different because we have really restrictive laws regarding what is private houses and non. But thinking in the rural tourism, where people live there and they are also using the same house for tourists and for activities. Yes, we have a part of the ones that manage agrotourism, what they call agrotourism, and they involve people and tourists in the activities of the daily activities of the farm in some way. Usually are women that do that and guide the tourists, or for example, we have others that they are specialized in cuisine, in gastronomy, Latin gastronomy, and they involve people and their guests on that. So it's, I think it's a little bit different, but yes, they wish to show how they live in their home. We don't have the problem of the family, because in Portugal we don't have the same as in Nigeria. It's normal to receive guests in home, so it's not a challenge like in other countries, maybe in Africa. Here we don't have that, but women are seeing that kind of activities with an opportunity to obtain more income while they are running the house in some way. So we see that they are just starting this type of activities, receiving people, making guiding around the village, around the small communities, because they have the knowledge, so they wanted to share it.
Yeah, I mean,
if I may just, sorry,
yeah,
Dr.
Taka, you want to add
Professor,
something to that?
I just wanted to add from a challenge point of view, the biggest challenge is then access to market. Because if I'm this woman with this wonderful, authentic experience in the mountains of Swaziland, I want to host people at my home, and there's thousands of women out there who want to do this, but it's then access to market. How do I get tourists to know about me and come to my home?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. And I'm just wondering, you know, you have all mentioned about the fantastic businesses that you're running. And I just wonder, because one of the things that the reports keep saying is that women entrepreneurs need to have, particularly during this time of the COVID crisis, that women need to have some kind of special injection of financial help. And I just wondered around the financial part of businesses, you know, talking about women who run businesses from their homes, talking about your own businesses that you have. Do you have a challenge, particularly now during COVID, around getting that finance? I think, Paka, you mentioned something around that. But, you know, it all sounds quite, you know, happy. And I just wondered, do you have any challenges when it comes
I made a note when Amira said, you know, we've been practicing resilience. And I mean, that's a perfect way to put it. We've been practicing resilience for 5 years. It is incredibly challenging, especially when you are so close to the problems on the ground and you know the impact that you could potentially have, but then you just don't have the cash flow, you don't have the resources to invest in actually fixing those problems. So I'll give you an example with the Africa Travel Hackathon. Hackathons in travel have been happening all over Europe for a long time now, but it's still such a new concept in Africa. And even though we have an established tourism industry, because the established industry prior to COVID now is doing well and everything is working and they're getting their international travelers and spending the US dollars and then going back, they didn't have a need before COVID to explore digital technologies or to look or invest in digital solutions. And what COVID-19, and so with the Africa Travel Hackathon last year, actually, we didn't get any funding at all. We approached several private sector stakeholders. We tried partnering even with the DMC, South African Tourism. It all just fell on you know, deaf ears. Nobody understood what it was that we were talking about, even though we're facing such a huge problem. And this is such a great idea to solve that problem. And so what we're hoping and what has happened through COVID-19 is that actually it's accelerated the need. I think everybody clearly understands the need now for digital technologies. So we're hoping that the second time around that we bring the Africa Travel Hackathon to the plate, people are actually more open to it. And I believe definitely stakeholders will definitely be more open going forward, especially in terms of investment in technology solutions for tourism in Africa.
Yeah, Ajala Nene, do you want to add to that? And then we're going to move on to the next
Yeah,
question.
I really do. I like what Parker said. Sadly, our government did not really see the benefits of investing in domestic tourism. So even when small businesses like me will come to ask for funding, maybe I'll go to what we call the Bank of Industry. We'll go to the Bank of Industry to ask for money for our tourism businesses. They'll be like, we don't have funding for the tourism space. And it's very painful because the tourism industry, I call it the octopus. It affects every industry in every economy in a society. So it was very painful. You go to such big people to ask for money and they'll tell you we don't have anything for the tourism space. You guys should be under creative. And you're like, but tourism means a lot. But thanks to COVID-19, hallelujah, they're seeing the benefits of investing in domestic tourism. And it's sad that they had to take COVID-19 to get them to see the benefits. Because now we have banks coming, they say, want to give you 10 million naira, they want to give you 50 million naira to develop the tourism space. It's good, we're seeing these monies coming out now, but our fear is that this money may not go into the right places. Because the people that really need this money are small businesses like me, rural areas that are really domestic places that people can go to. They're not developed because there's no money. Those are the people that need that money. Now that the money is out, our prayer is that they will actually use that money to help small businesses like myself and other rural areas to develop these things, because I call domestic tourism our oil that can never run dry. So if we can actually use those money that has come out now, thanks to COVID-19, hopefully, let's see, it may actually develop our domestic tourism, at least here in Nigeria.
Yeah, before that's interesting that you're seeing more money coming now than actually less money. And I just wondered, before we move on to the next question, which I think might have to be the final question, Apollonia, do you, can you say anything about finance in your situation?
Yes, as I said before, we felt after the closing, the confinement, we felt a growing of demand. So we, for example, in our case, all the losses we had during the confinement were overtaken during the next months, the months until September. But in matter of fact, we were already, 2020 was supposed to be a great year for all of us in Portugal. And only for the rural areas were okay, for the rest no. But as I was already working with other regions to implement the same concept and brand, we didn't felt that problem so easy as the others. And our network of partners, as they are small and they are resilient, I think they also, and most of them are ruled by women, I think they also add some kind of money that they always need to support. I mean, you have always a bag because you don't know what happens in the future, so you always have a little bag of comfort, so I think is that capacity for women that manage the house and always have that kind that how can I say in English, that support. They feel good with that support. They help them to pass the confinement, and then all our areas and our regions felt the recovery immediately. So we were just 2 months of apprehension that we had to survive, but suddenly we started to feel the recovery. So for us, a little bit different. What I am now trying to help them, it's not this time we had. What I am afraid is from this autumn and winter. you know, until the recovery in March. So we are trying to cope with national tourism and close border tourism with Spain, so to overcome this now this moment. And I think we have enough publicity. We continue to, by digital, have contact with our clients. So I think we will be good, and I will continue not so well, but at least to continue and to survive the next month.
Yeah, thank you. I see, Amira, you have something burning that you want to say right now about this.
Yeah, I just want to comment on Nina and the question of this. You know, when you have a crisis, especially in the global south, you always have money coming from international organization. Now this raised two, problems. The first one is this money is not sustainable, right? So I always like, my participant social entrepreneur with whom I talk, they said, okay, this money is coming. So as Nina said, let's use it, even if it's international organization, even if we see it as, a kind of dependency, but let's use it because otherwise someone else will use it. So, play again with the game of, the rules, and just try to have, to make a profit out of it. But the second thing is that what I see, who access this money? Basically, these are, young social entrepreneur that can write, proposal to ask for money, that have, university degree. But then if you look to the, what I call, subsistence entrepreneur that are also working like this woman I was talking about, also evolving in rural area, working in tourism, they cannot write a proposal and ask, for this money. So this is also, again, who access this money, right? We have money, but then they need, again, an intermediary, usually could be a woman social entrepreneur that will help them, but they will not have direct access to this money. So I think finance is a problem before the crisis. It's something that is always recurrent, and the challenge is how to create sustainable mechanism of, of finance that create independence, and not rely on these funding and or intermediary. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've been having so much fun with so many interesting discussions that the time has sort of been pushing on. And I did see that there was a question in there some time ago about diversity and inclusion. We might not get the time to address that, but I think, Albert, there's a final thing that we need to get every panelist to really put a sentence or two. So maybe with regard to that question on diversity and inclusion, maybe one of the things that you want to say in the end might surround that question. But yeah, we haven't had the time to go into depth with that one. But Albert, can I pass it over to you to just kind of close and ask for that final summing up from the panelists?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Donna, for sharing this second half of the webinar. Really interesting insights, interesting contributions from all our panelists, and I do hope it has contributed to enriching our horizons on how we see the issues facing women entrepreneurs in women entrepreneurs who own micro and small, medium-sized businesses. To round up now, we are running out of time, as Donna has mentioned. I would like to call on all the panelists to give us one takeaway, one lesson which they think will enable all the participants this afternoon to go back and thinking, this is important. If I am a business owner, if I am a tourism industry worker, I am a woman, I am a man, I own a business, I employ and engage and interact with women, what key lessons should they take going out of this webinar? I'll start with Paga.
Key lesson for me is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. You just go so much further when we work together rather than trying to do everything on your own. You have to collaborate, especially in established tourism. If you're a traditional tourism player, find a young person who's going to get you up the curve in terms of digital enablement, in terms of technology. We have to work together. Thank you. And collaboration here, it's not only about marketing, it's about product development, it's about learning. Absolutely. Skills and upscaling. It's very important. Absolutely. At all the different stages of the tourism. It's knowledge sharing. It's about knowledge exchange and sharing. Amira, to you, please.
Yeah, I'm a researcher, so I tend to ask more questions than, find solutions. So it's, so for me, really, it's, really again, a question, how can we learn from this inspiring, entrepreneur? Because these tactics of resilience, this negotiation, we need to, to grasp this. We tend to say, okay, we want to empower women, but I think they are empowering the world and they are transforming the world. So, what we can learn from them, because they live under multiple layer of, discrimination problems, navigating. So we need to learn from them, and how, can we gather this knowledge, and share it, with everyone.
So to sum it up, it's about accepting, acknowledging, recognizing the knowledge that comes from these women entrepreneurs. They might be micro entrepreneurs, they might be subsistence entrepreneurs, but they all have a story and they all have some experience to share, and we can learn from them. Apollonia.
Yes, decolonization of knowledge, yes, from, from the bottom up and from this woman,
Apollonia, please.
Yes, as being a woman, I was to say resilience and respect. Respect our role in the business industry, our capacity and role in being leaders, and take into consideration the knowledge and the difference we can bring to the leadership in tourism. And resilience, because we are usually resilient with many obstacles during our life, so we are able to implement that in rolling the business and managing the business. I think it's
Thank you very much. Respect is key here. I mean, and resilience, which Amira said. Respect is recognizing the role women as equal partners in every development process. When you think about inclusion and you think about diversity, which has been mentioned here, in many of our communities, we still have patriarchal societies. If you look at the employment and the gender wage gap, it is still massively in favor of the men. If you look at management positions within industry, it is still massively in favor of the men. So respect and recognition of the capabilities of women is very important. Thank you. Nena.
For me, like Parker, collaboration. I mean, what has really helped me in my tourism business is collaborating with other women in the tourism space. And that has been amazing. And another thing, let's leverage digital platforms. Technology is here to stay. Let's make the best of it. And that's the only way we can use it. It's a free platform. So let's leverage it to build our business and all that.
Thank you. Technology, which we see it has come to stay, it's going to be the driver of our industry tomorrow, needs to be leveraged. If we don't have the skills, then those platforms are there for us to learn. On that note, I will want to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Taleb Rifai, the former executive director of the UNWTO. Mr. Taleb, thank you for joining us and for being part of the webinar today.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you and here to listen to all these wonderful ladies.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So, if I may, Dr. Rifai, would you please add your voice to this seminar? It's very much to hear the big voice as well. For those of you who do not know, Dr. Taleb Rifai is the former Secretary General of UNWTO, and we are so pleased and proud that he has joined us. And I don't want us to miss the opportunity of not hearing you saying something about this very important topic, women in small communities of the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jafar. You're always very kind. I want to first register my admiration to all the women that we heard from Nigeria, from Mozambique, from Portugal, from Tunis. They all say the same story. I want to share with you a little story, if you don't mind. I was 2 years ago, 2017, I was in the country of the Philippines. And there, the lady minister took me in a helicopter to see one of the projects that she was so proud of in an island near Manila. When we landed there, I recognized that from the investor that was waiting for us, that he bought the entire island to be able to control his investment. The project was like Disneyland for adults. It was a very nice project, but it's not the type of projects that I would relate to. It's a hotel-built Mexican style, hotel-built African style, hotel-built French style, so on and so forth, with lots of restaurants and lots of things. So what they didn't tell me at the time is that there were 90,000 people living on that island. So I got curious. I asked the man, what happened to them? He said, don't worry about them. I'm like their father. I take very good care of them. I employ them all in my hotel. And I built for them schools, I built for them clinics and so on. So I asked to go visit that community. He was not very comfortable with that, but I went anyhow. I spent 2 hours there, I came back. He was having dinner with the minister. When he came back, when I came back, he asked me, what did you, I said, you're right. People appreciate very much the jobs that you provided to them, but, he said, oh, there's a but. So there's a big but. The but is, I'm not sure how the children and the grandchildren of this community are going to feel in the future about continuously serving the rich people of the world or going back to their own community, finding the difference in economic levels. That's the bottom line of those small communities. I think we need to lower the walls between visiting communities and the local communities. So when he asked me what to do, I said, you should encourage your people to go out of this compound. These all-inclusive compounds are a disaster. You don't interact with people. You have to go there. You create jobs by going. And the best way of maintaining women's rights is to have self-employment. Women are much better than men, believe me. Men have ruled this world for 10,000 years. We now see the results of that. I think it's time for women to show their face and to show their leadership. I'm very proud of all the women that I saw today. I think that what's needed now is to divert the concept of social corporate responsibility from sharing your profit into sharing your business. We should impose on any investment to share its business with the local community around it. If it fails to do so, it's not worth staying, it's not sustainable anyhow. Because what is needed is self-employment. Even if you employ the entire village, at the end of the day, there'll be workers only working to serve the richer people. And that's why Corona is an opportunity for us. Corona, you know, in the Chinese language, the word crisis and the word opportunity are one word. Crisis and opportunity. There's a big opportunity here in promoting what we call local and regional tourism, particularly in Africa. I think that we have overlooked that for a long period of time. In Europe, for example, the United States, 75% of the traffic is local traffic. I think our people need to first enjoy their country before anybody else come and enjoy it. A country that's not enjoyed, not traveled by its own people, cannot be enjoyed by anybody else. And women have a great role to play in all of this because they're the dynamo of the families. And it's these small businesses, small families that are the important thing here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, and I'm sorry I took more time than I should have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rifai. Fantastic and very good words of advice there and wisdom coming from somebody who has been there and done it and seen all of it and still sharing that knowledge and wisdom. Very much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I will now wrap up by calling on Kazem for a quick word and Professor Jafari to close the webinar session.
Thank you, Albert. I truly enjoyed the whole dialogue and seminar, and it's an honor to have Talib Rafai in our board, and it's really valuable to see that the quality of discussion is so high. I just want to have a perspective from Asia and Pacific region for the role of tourism, women in tourism. All over the world, we have a very significant role for tourism, especially in small communities. In Asia, and specifically in Japan, women has been really an important part of hospitality service. In Japan, we have a special word, okami, and in Japanese, they call it okami-san. Okami-san is a female manager that has a charismatic concept and face in the hospitality industry that is checking always the sustainability and the quality management of the service in the industry. So it's often the case that the repeaters come and utilize the services in hospitality industry due to the management and quality management of the okami, who is the female manager in the industry. So I can say that in small communities all over Japan and in many countries in East Asia, they have been providing leadership and taking this leadership role in small communities. As you know, especially in rural and small communities, we have one of the main attractions is food. Food and gastronomy tourism, and women are the provider and the leader of this section of the industry. And in Japan, a big proportion of Japanese inbound and domestic travel is for local cuisines and local food. And this is how we also can recapture the significant role of women in tourism. In the era of pandemic, Japan faced also a big problem like any other countries. But I can say that in a local level, Japanese economy and in a small community is not really highly dependent on tourism economy. Tourism doesn't play a dominant role. And that's why that in Japan, we could tolerate it more. The reason I say we, because I'm living in Japan for 20 years. In the small community level, even though we have tourism, we have a backup of diversified economy that they could resist, and the resiliency is rather high. Due to the culture of Japanese domestic travel and the hygiene that they have in their travel behavior, they could manage this in some extent that now using or utilizing some public fund or Japanese government policy of subsidizing in local and domestic travel, which is represented by a go-to travel campaign. We have some part of the industry which is revitalized. So the last but not the least is the significant role of women in sustainable development. They are a constant part of the leadership in a small community, in the main livelihood, and as well as tourism industry. I don't want to take longer time, and my last word will be an invitation to all of you for the next months. Our next webinar will be on resilience, leadership, and the small communities in November. So I want to invite all of you to take part in this next webinar. So thank you again, Albert. You're excellent, and your team did a really good job. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Kazem.
Thanks all.
For providing a Japanese Southeast Asian perspective on women and small community tourism. I'll now hand over the floor to Jafar to say the last word and close the session. Thank you, Jafar.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to add my thanks to Kazem. If I may make one conclusion here from all the presentations, and at the end, Dr. Talib Rifai, what comes across is empathy, that people need to have empathy in order to succeed in tourism. So empathic relationship, empathic management, etc. matters a lot. And to me, I don't have documentation, but I think in the gender, women are more empathic than men. And that is why they are better in hospitality than men. So when it comes to hospitality and the sense of hospitality, women always shine. Women entrepreneurs, workers always shine. So it is very important to keep in mind that empathy has a place in tourism. And I think more so now than before, we have to pay attention to the subject of empathy, not just empathy in the workplace, but empathize with the tourists who are questioning safety, security, sanitation. Should I be coming now or not? Empathy with the community, how the community feels about these outsiders, tourists coming here. So empathy in all ways, in all respects, very important in tourism. I would like to add to Kazem's points as well, that we have a series, and please join us as we move on. We are a group of 4 persons who are organizing the webinars. Dr. Duarte Morais from University of North Carolina State University, sorry, myself, Kazem from Asia Pacific University, and Reza Sultani from Tourism Community in Belgium. We do 2 webinars per month, one of them in English, which is our main one, like this one. And each time it would have a different focus, but all the time it would be small communities, small entrepreneur, and even micro entrepreneurs. And we also realized that in order to penetrate the market, in order to communicate our points to the people who are in the workplace, we decided that language is a barrier. And we cannot communicate with most people in the small communities if we have a message for them. So we also decided to have special editions of the webinars in local languages. We already did ours last 2 weeks ago. The first one in Farsi or Persian. The next one is going to be 100% in Portuguese. Our colleague from Duarte Morais is going to organize that. Then we have, in December, we have one in Chinese, 100% in Chinese, by Chinese speaking people, etc. And then after that, we have Spanish, and we would like to have definitely Arabic, definitely Russian, and then we move on to different subjects. So we are trying to penetrate the market, if I may call it the market, by having people who are doing hands-on business in the small communities, and also using the tool of language. So I hope you join us. Our webinar link is very easy to remember. It's tourism webinar. If you just, as one word, if you type that, you would get it. .com or .org. I'm not sure about that one. I see that Reza is also here, our partner, but Dr. Duarte Morais is not. Again, thank you very much for this wonderful contribution. Please keep in mind that we are talking about small entrepreneurs, micro entrepreneurs, small communities. But if you add them all together, they are bigger than the formal sector of the tourism industry. And that's the part that people don't realize, that informal sector of tourism is actually bigger than the formal. And thank you very much, Donna, for reminding us that 54% of tourist people in tourism are women, which is a UNWTO data. And the other thing is,
but only 17% are in leadership position.
Yes, 17%, but the total population 54%, correct?
Yes, yes, that's right.
So that shows the domination. And those of us who are education, we also have seen that in reality. When I joined University of Wisconsin, I had 25% female students, 75% male. Today is 90% female and 10% male. And this, I have seen it universally. So these people are tourism is going to be a female dominated industry. And I have absolutely no doubt about this. It's moving in that direction. In the share volume, it's 54% already, but in the direction, in the leadership position, this is going to take place. And today we witness how much innovation women are using in the very hard time of COVID-19. This is the time that the formal sector has not been able to survive and manage. And yet we see the informal sector has been very successful with e-commerce. So thank you very much to all of you presenters and the co-chairs. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Jafari. Thank you all for joining us in this webinar. Thank you to the panelists and Donna, as well as all the participants, and your input and questions, as well as comments in the chat box were really, really incisive. I think it has been enriching. It has been rewarding for all of us. We've run a bit over time, but sometimes when the discussions get engaging, this tends to happen. Thank you and have a wonderful and a blessed weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Until next webinar.
See you.
Yeah.
You.